Hello, I'm Nancy Lockwood with the Fetal Alcohol Resource Program at Citizen Advocacy Ottawa. We're here today to have a conversation with Dr. Ana Hanlon Dearman, who has joined us today from Winnipeg. Welcome, Dr. Hanlon Dearman, and we'd appreciate if you could tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks very much, Nancy. So I'm the medical director of the Manitoba FASD Centre in Winnipeg, and I'm also a diagnostic lead with CanFASD. So I'm delighted to be here and talk a little bit about FASD.
Well, thank you. We're so pleased you're here. So we're wondering, when somebody receives a diagnosis of FASD, what should they do next?
Sure. I think one of the important things to think about when one receives a diagnosis of FASD is how one builds, the term we use is their circle of support. Mm-hmm. So who are the people around your child, because I'm a pediatrician, who is going to be able to help your child in their various areas that they work or that they go to school in? Who's going to be your child's pediatrician? Who are going to be your child's therapists if they don't already have therapists? And how do you build those circles in the various organizations? So in school, for example, you're really going to want to make sure that your child has appropriate individualized planning. You're going to need to know who to talk with at your school, and how are you going to communicate the diagnosis of FASD when you're at school? How is the school going to use that information in a positive way to help support their educational planning? How are recommendations that may come out of the report in terms of things that need to be done to adapt to your child's particular assessment? And what I mean by that is, in the assessment, we look at a variety of brain domains. Mm-hmm. And the assessments that we get about the brain domains should be active, practical pieces of information that you use for your child. If you know what your child's learning strengths and challenges mm-hmm. are, then you can develop a program that addresses those. But beyond that, you may also want to look at, what is your child's sensory processing needs? How does that fit in a classroom, and what can be done to enhance that? What are your child's social skills, and how can we encourage your child to be interacting with other kids or with other adults in a positive way, and make sure they're included in different programs at school? How do people talk about FASD at school? Are they going to talk about FASD? Is that something you want? If that is something that you would like, how do we do that in a way that people understand how to communicate with the child, and how that child understands their own abilities and challenges? And kids of different ages might do that in different ways. I'm probably talking about an older child or an adolescent when I'm talking about mm-hmm. that. But depending on the school and the structure, you may have younger children being involved in that as well. Really depends on what is set up already. I think you want to know what their communication needs are. Many kids with FASD can be pretty chatty, mm-hmm. But that doesn't always mean that they understand yes. things well, or they know how to communicate their own thoughts in particular ways. They sometimes struggle with, more abstract concepts or some of the social pragmatic things. So, that's what I mean about building the circle, is really understanding the assessment that you've been provided on your child, and how do we adapt elements of that assessment so that it's a very practical thing for you. I think it's also important to think about that assessment over time. Most of us provide a diagnostic assessment at a particular point in time for a child, but the assessment that you might receive for your child when they're 4 or 5 or 6 might need to be a quite different assessment when they're 11 or 12 or 17 or 18. And so while you wouldn't be receiving a new diagnosis, there may be pieces of that assessment that would be important to inform the supports and services that you receive when you're older, or when you're transitioning from, say, an elementary school to a junior high school, or from mm-hmm. a middle school to a high school, and certainly when you transition to adulthood.
Yes.
So I think building your circle of support outside of school, you want your kids involved in a variety of activities. You want the activities to enhance your child's functioning, and also to be FASD informed in who delivers the activities. So you want to think about how do you have that conversation with the providers that you're going to have, or at least have a conversation about what your child's particular needs are in different settings. So you really are building a circle of support around the child that enhances their functioning in really positive ways, but is cognizant of the areas that they need support in.
Thank you. That's most helpful.